Well, hello, everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. Always great to be with you. I hope this message finds you doing great today. Looking forward to just spending a little time with you as we continue in this series, this conversation, if you will, about storms in life. In particular, we're talking about the family crisis, the family storm. We've all had those. It can be an emotional battle. It can be a physical battle in some cases. Unfortunately, it always does come back to the emotional side of things. Where does that drive us? Where do we gain our strength, or do we give up? In the account that we're dealing with from Matthew chapter 15, we see a mother who is just overwhelmed with despair because her daughter is dealing with something that she can't fix. No doctor's going to fix it, no pill's going to fix it, and there's nothing that can fix it but God Himself. This mom has ultimately come to that realization that my only true help is finding Jesus. Let me share with you today that prescription still holds true. It is not expired. Jesus is our only true help, friends. And I don't say that just because I'm a pastor. I don't just say that just because I myself believe that, although I do. I live that every single day. I'm not discounting other things and conversations and what have you. But at the end of the day, just as Jesus would proclaim in the book of John, I give unto you unlike the world gives unto you. What does that mean? Everything Jesus prescribes us, everything Jesus offers to us is eternal and has eternal value. We're just the opposite. Every single thing the world offers us is temporary. It doesn't last. We need a lasting answer. We do. Because that's what gives us peace. Even though if things don't end or come to a result of the way that we want them to in this life, we can still have peace with God and the peace of God that life will end well. Regardless of the journey here, the next step gives us comfort and peace, and that comes through a true relationship with Christ. In this story, we understand, as all of us, that some place, form, fashion have been through a family crisis. It can be the death of a loved one. It can be seeing someone sick. It could be seeing someone go through a very difficult time, maybe an addiction, or maybe just whatever, a divorce. There's 1,000 different scenarios. Family crisis can be awful. There's no way around that. We can feel helpless because by nature, most of us, I wouldn't say all because that wouldn't be true, but most of us by nature are fixers. We want to fix it. That's just kind of how we're wired. When we see something that we care about, and in particular someone that we care about, and they're going through something difficult, we want to help. We want to go the extra mile, whatever that means, whether it's visiting, whether it's trying to raise support, whether it's giving that support from our own pockets, whatever it is, we want to help. But there are times that we feel powerless because it's something that we can't do on our own. It's just beyond our reach. This mom, she was there. She had come to that point. She said, Lord, have mercy on me. Help me. My daughter is grievously vexed. Again, that's not our conversation. We don't talk like that. And as the different translations have come about through the years, obviously those words have been changed and looked at a little differently. But she's overwhelmed. She is bottom line possessed by the devil, by a demon. Now, again, I wrote a long post yesterday, and I mentioned it in yesterday's lesson about, I realize that that's not a word we hear a lot today in a serious way. We see it more of a comical or more of just a passing fad now. It seems like all these different entertainers want to play around and toy around with things that are satanic or evil and try to get a little press, try to get, whatever. I mean, even the big networks sometimes even again, they make just kind of comedy about it, or they don't take it serious. Like this recent horror show on this Grammy thing, which of course I didn't watch, but I saw another headline this morning where the network CBS that had that television show on, said, let's get ready to worship, and then somebody comes out dressed up like the devil. Really, friends, that stuff's not a joke. Mom here realized it wasn't a joke, because this thing was torturing her child, her daughter, her loved one, something that was a part of her, literally. So she was there. She was at a point of despair. She was at a point where I can't do this. And so somewhere in her life, someone introduced her to Christ. Somehow she heard about Jesus. We're not given the backstory. And all of us have one as to where our place of faith has come from, or if we don't have one, I pray that something through this broadcast would lead you to that, or that somewhere along the way, someone in your journey would introduce you to the answer. Not an answer, the answer, and his name is Jesus. Somewhere this happened in her life. She knew who he was. She knew of his abilities. And it's important. Words are important. And I teach that a lot in all of my teachings. She said, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. She says that in verse 22. When she came out, she said, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. What was she saying in that? That word's important. Why it was written that way, why it was expressed that way. She was saying to him, I know I'm not worthy. I've done nothing to deserve your mercy. Friends, that's all of us. Nothing. That's what grace is. It is undeserved merit of favor. We've done nothing to deserve this from God by the way that we've lived, the way that we've acted, the way that we treat each other. I mean, we read the headlines, we read all these different things today, and it's again, not to be repetitive, it's a horror show. It's awful how people are treating each other these days, the things that are going on these days, and the recklessness that is taking in life, and the things that are going on. And here mom is openly saying, I know I don't deserve it, but please help me. I can't do this. I need you. I need you. I can't do this. And I'm asking with all my heart, not for me, but for her. See, mom wasn't giving up. The storm of the family crisis can often drive us forward or drive us crazy, but it pushes us. It makes us really go that extra mile, run that last lap, push across that finish line, do that last rep, whatever, when we think we're completely depleted, we have nothing else. But there's something about that family crisis that drives us when we truly have a deep care. We're willing to go the extra mile. Mom, we have to understand again the societal difference, the cultural difference, the gender difference, male, female, whatever, which is the only two, by the way. But mom knew. I had to slip that in. Mom knew the odds were not in her favor. I mean, not at all, because of all the different, the odds were stacked against her. The cards were not laid out in a winning hand for her. And she knew that. Yet she still pushed forward. When we come to an understanding like she did, see, she recognized Jesus for who he really is. Not a religious figure, not a biblical character, but a true, literal, living, breathing one. The only one that is able, the only one who has the actual answers, as it says in John chapter 1. The Word of God, that's who he is. Nothing was created that he didn't create. She understood this in totality. And there was obviously through the message here no doubts about that. It wasn't a skeptical approach. Maybe this is the guy. Jesus, are you the guy they call Lord? Are you the one? No. She approached him, Jesus, Lord, thou son of David. She knew who he was. There was no question. When we can come to that same conclusion, when we can realize that Jesus is Lord, he is Savior, he is Messiah, it changes everything. Adrian Rogers, a pastor of old, he used to say, he said this many times, other people have used it, I've used it. When Jesus becomes Lord of all, it changes everything. But if he is not Lord of all in your life, then he's not Lord at all. She realized this. We need to realize this. He is Lord of all. Therefore, whatever is going on in our life, regardless of how big we think it is, and it may be minuscule, and it may be massive. It could be a ripple in a tidal pool, and it could be a tsunami wave that is about to wash away everything. If we realize that there's nothing God can't do, and we actually believe that, it's not just a thought that has been given to us by someone else that we've been told to believe. It's not something that we've just read and said, well, yeah, I guess that'll work. No, it's a true embracing from our heart. I believe. I know. I don't have any doubts. I know. I mean, it is like the assurity of something that we know. Water's wet, fire's hot, snow is cold. Things that there's just no doubt. There's nothing to argue about. We can argue about everything that goes on in the world. What is this? What is that? How long was this here? All this stuff. We can get into it. We can really, really get into the weeds on some of this stuff and really get into foolish arguments, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change your life. We need to stand firm on what changes your life. Mom persisted. We're told in the beginning of this that she didn't get an answer, that Jesus was silent. But then he did. He did. He answered her. And it wasn't the answer she was looking for. It wasn't the answer that the reader is even prepared for. Because we're thinking, okay, here's somebody with a great need. Instantly, just right on the spot, she's going to get everything taken care of right there. Well, that's not how that worked. Not at all. There's a reason why. And it's not God being mean. It's not God playing with emotions or whatever. See, friends, God doesn't deal with phony. God doesn't deal with superficial foolishness like we do in this world. Because a lot of people today will tell you something and seem absolutely sincere and not mean one word of it. Not mean one word. It's a total show. None of it's real. I was just reading this morning in the book of Malachi, and I encourage you to go and check that out. The book of Malachi, chapter 1 and 2. I reread that this morning, and it came to me in such a fresh new way of the seriousness of God. He said, don't come to me with phoniness, phony worship, phony nothing. I don't want it because it's not real. And he says, for those who persist in that, there's a consequence, and it's not a good one. We see a lot of that today. See, I've been in ministry now for over 20 years. I was in law enforcement prior to that. I've seen my share of real, and I've seen my share of show on both sides of those careers. Jesus answered her, but it wasn't in the way that nobody expected. What he would say, it would seem like it was mean, horrible, cold. But we have to understand how this is written. It is written as a mixture of culture. It is also written as a mixture and a test of faith. Because in the storm Our faith is tested. It is. Because God already knows. But we have to know for ourselves, is it real? Am I real? There was an illustration I've used many, many times. Again, what is it based on? Is it based on truth? Is it based on reality? I don't know. But it makes for a visual picture that you can create that in, which gives us, again, a clear sign of what is going on here, of reality. Am I real? It says that a group of people are gathered in a bunker during wartime, maybe particularly World War II. Hitler's guys are running all over the place and knocking in doors and storming in and telling people this, telling people that, whatever the case. These people are gathered in a circle and they're singing songs and they're holding, a page that they've torn out of a Bible and whatever. These guys kick in the door and they point the gun at everyone's head. And they said, you deny what you're saying, you quit what you're doing, and you leave immediately, or we're going to kill you. Everybody in the room left but two people. Two people. The officers then looked around from side to side and said, you two are going to stay. You two are going to face death for what you believe. You two are willing to do that. You two believe and love God that much. And they said, yes, we do. Because our life is not ours. It belongs to Him. The officers would then lay their guns down and say, okay, now we know that you're the real deal. Let's worship. Now, if we think about that illustration, of course, did it really happen? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. Somebody came up with that, and all of us preachers probably have used that at some point in time. But I like the picture that it paints, because what we see in that picture is it wasn't just the soldiers finding out who was real and who they could trust. It was the individual themselves being pressed. Do I really believe this enough to give my life? Mom believed it enough in her heart to press forward regardless of any ridicule that may come, regardless of any persecution that may come. None of that mattered, because her little girl needed an answer. And she knew there was only one place to get it. So Mom was willing to go the extra mile regardless of what it cost her. So the response that she would get, again, on the surface would seem awful. It would seem cold. It would seem heartless. But again, we mix culture and we throw in a testing of faith for herself. Then we start seeing why. Jesus said to her, it is not right. It is not, in this particular version, it says it's not meat. It's not appropriate to take the bread that is meant for the children, speaking of the Jews at this time, and give it to the dogs. Now, one would say, my goodness, that sounds awful. That's horrible. We have to understand, culture at that time, that is what the Gentile, the person outside of the Jewish race, that's what they were called, dogs. We have cultural, societal, racial, all this stuff that still goes on right now. We can see from a history point, it was then there too. That hadn't changed. Only time has gone by, friends. Most things in humanistic things have not changed. We still see the continual divide, and we still can see the continual pursuit of division amongst people. Well, who's behind that? The enemy. Because if we're together and united, we're strong. If we're divided and scattered, we're weak. We have to understand what was being said here. Why was that said? Now, because again, one would hear that statement and they would be shocked. It would just be like, oh my goodness gracious, this is awful. I mean, he said earlier, I'm not sent for you. I'm not sent here to help you. I'm not sent only but until the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But even at that statement, it said that she still persisted. She came and she said she worshiped him, and she said, Lord, help me. I've got something only you can fix. Have you been to that place? Are you at that place right now? Is it a family storm going on in your life? See, God knows our heart. He knew her heart. Would she see his words as rejection? Was this the end? Was all hope lost? No. No, not at all. Why? Because our hope was in Jesus. Her hope wasn't in tradition or rituals or religion. It wasn't in a think so, hope so, maybe so. I'm going to try this time and see if this. It was in none of those things. This was in something tangible, something real. She said, Lord, help me. Lord. She recognized who he was. She was not giving up. She was showing him through her persistence. She was showing him through the just complete exposure of her heart. She believed. She was without doubt that he was the one. He was able. He was capable. He was the one. Here's the question. Do we show that to God? Do we really show him that we believe? We can pray all day long. We can say all the beautiful words. We can memorize all the scriptures. We can do all the different stuff. We can get all the rituals and the gimmicks and everything all together. But do we believe it? Do we live it? And if it's put to a test, do we maintain it, or do we fall apart like a house built on sand? Because that's when it really gets real. Mary and Martha, at the raising of Lazarus, they came out and they proclaimed all the things that they knew. But Jesus said, but do you believe it? So we know a lot of things. We know a lot of things. Book knowledge and things that we've witnessed and whatever, because we know a lot of things, but do you believe it? That's where the difference comes. I know this will do this, but do you believe that? Because belief actually puts things in motion. I know that my key will go and start my car, and if it puts in reverse, it'll go backwards or forwards, whatever the case. I know that. But do I believe it? Believe it means I go get in it and crank it up and leave. I know that Jesus can do this. I know that Jesus can do that. And I know this other stuff that I've taught and lived for the last many years. But do I believe it? Because believing is the application. This is where we see Mom. She didn't just say it. She lived it. She poured it out before him. She said, Lord, help me. God hears our heart, but God knows our heart. We're going to stop right there today, and we'll finish this tomorrow, Lord willing, as we enter the midweek. It'll be Wednesday already. But this account is not just a desperate mom, trying to bail her daughter out of trouble. She wants to save her life, not just for now, but for eternity, because that's what she knows counts. Friends, we have a lot of things going on in this life today, a lot of desperate things happening, a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of this, a lot of that. But at the end of the day, it all comes back down, and I can't stress this enough, it all comes back down, do we know him in a personal way to the point that we actually believe? Because that changes everything. When we start believing, then we start living it. And when we start living it, then we start experiencing it. That does not mean we're exempt from troubles. That does not mean that we're exempt from headaches and heartaches. But we have a lifeline to hold on to that allows us to never drown. And that's important. God bless you. Thank you for joining me today again for Making It Simple. And Lord willing, I'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll conclude this account tomorrow of the family storm, and then we'll see what's next. God bless you. Take care.